EQT. We'll finish tonight at 9 p.m. sharp. And now, everyone, without any further ado, please put your hands together for your chair this evening, Assembly Member Dr. Onkar Sahota.
Good evening. The last time I was here with a hall so full and me speaking on stage was when we were campaigning Save Our Ealing Hospital and our NHS. And some things still haven't changed, but tonight let me welcome you to the 46th People's Question Time for this evening and for all those watching online. This is the second time that this event is being held in Ealing, and this is the 14th People's Question Time for the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. It's great to see so many of you here this evening. I just have a few announcements to make before I introduce you to the London Assembly members and the Mayor, and we can then take your questions. The Mayor and the Assembly work to improve life for Londoners and make London a better place. People's Question Time is your chance to voice concerns and ask the Mayor and Assembly members what we're doing for the capital and its people. First, please welcome to stage your London Assembly members. And now, please welcome the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. This evening, we'll be taking questions under the following sections: transport, policing and safety, air quality and environment, housing, London's economic recovery, and finally, anything else not already covered. If you are pre-registered to watch it from home, you will be able to submit your questions throughout the evening. Please note that the chat is for questions only, and comments will not be published. Try to ask your questions early to avoid them being missed, and don't forget to like each other's questions. For each topic, we'll begin with 2 questions taken from the live audience here, followed by 1 question online. If you have time for additional questions, they will be taken from the live audience. I want you to remind you to keep your questions short. I also ask the Mayor and the Assembly members to keep your answers succinct and short, and to point out that the more questions we can get in, the better it will be for all of us. Please listen to the questions and answers with respect and dignity, and do not heckle or disrupt the meeting, please. Your electronic devices should already be on the silent mode, and the same applies to the Mayor and London Assembly members here on stage. Before we begin, I do want to take a few moments to welcome you all here, not just as the chair for this meeting, because this is my constituency of Ealing and Hillingdon, but also as chair of the London Assembly. The London Assembly is comprised of 25 Assembly members elected at the same time as the Mayor. To ensure that your money is well spent, the Assembly scrutinises the Mayor's plans and holds them to account to ensure that he delivers for Londoners. This year, the Assembly has focused on 5 key priorities throughout its work. Firstly, London's safety. Amid mounting concerns about the conduct of some Metropolitan Police officers, members of the Police and Crime Committee have been questioning the Met Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, on a regular basis about his plans to restore trust and confidence in the force. Secondly, climate change. At the end of last year, the Environment Committee met with the representatives of London's hospitality businesses to hear about them and the steps they're taking to help the city transition to a green economy. And just yesterday, members of the Planning and Regeneration Committee held a meeting to speak to guests about whether it's more environmentally friendly to modify older buildings, to make them more energy efficient, or to demolish and start by rebuilding them. Thirdly, recovering from COVID-19. As the city continues to recover from COVID-19, the Health Committee wrote to the Mayor in December outlining the steps he should take to support the capital's early sector following the pandemic. The Economy Committee also held a roundtable event with smaller cultural organisations across London to hear about the help they need to bounce back from the impact of COVID-19. Fourthly, cost of living. The cost of living continues to be a front and centre of Londoners' minds. The inflation, meaning high food prices, energy bills rising, mortgages and rents rising. The Housing Committee published its Affordable Housing Monitor in October, benchmarking the Mayor's delivery of affordable homes against his commitments. The Economy Committee members looked into food insecurity in October, hearing from organisations and food bank volunteers on the challenges for Londoners when it comes to accessing food. And for older Londoners, many of these challenges will be even more difficult this year. So there's been a particular focus on this group throughout the investigations. For example, into the impact of public transport fare reforms, healthy living for Londoners, and during scrutiny of the GLA budget plans. So to keep you up to date with our work, please follow us on Twitter at London Assembly and keep watching our meetings in person at City Hall or on the YouTube. The Assembly will continue to voice the concerns of Londoners, investigating and championing the issues that matter to you. You elected us, and we look out for you. And now I want to invite the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, to give his opening address. Over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, good evening, everyone. Can I begin by thanking the Chair of the London Assembly, who is also your local Assembly member, Dr. Onkar Sahota, for his opening remarks. Onkar, thank you for the work you did as a politician, but also as a local doctor, particularly during the awful pandemic we're just coming out of now. It's also lovely to see local MPs James Murray and Rupa Huck here tonight, as well as the leader of Ealing Council, Peter Mason. Wonderful to see our borough commander here and senior police officers as well. Can I thank all the public servants who are here tonight, who work so hard for this community. It's great to be here in Ealing and to have the opportunity to listen to your experiences and to answer your questions. As the title of this event suggests, People's Question Time is about you, not me, so I'll keep my opening remarks short. I do, though, just want to take a moment to acknowledge the extreme financial pressures many in our communities are under as a result of 13 years of austerity and the cost of living crisis, and touch on what we're doing in City Hall to help. Last week, I announced an unprecedented £130 million in funding to provide free school meals to all primary school children in London for the next academic year. On average, this will save parents around £440 per child per year. While it should be the job of national government to tackle childhood hunger and poverty, they failed to do this. And so I couldn't be more proud to be able to step up and offer this crucial lifeline. As someone who benefited from free school meals myself, I know This will be a game changer, not only for the children at risk of going hungry, but for families struggling to make ends meet. We're also spending a further £80 million to provide cost of living support to our communities. This includes helping Londoners to access vital advice to improve energy efficiency and keep their homes warmer. However, the unprecedented nature of this economic crisis means the government must do more. And that's why I'm calling on them to give me the powers to immediately freeze private rents in London. During a period of intense hardship, it's wrong to adopt a sink or swim attitude towards our communities. Instead, as Mayor, I'll always seek to extend a helping hand to enable Londoners to keep their heads above water. My administration will also continue to focus strongly on the issues that matter most to our communities and residents in Ealing. Issues like violent crime, which, thanks to our approach of being tough on crime and tough on the causes of crime, is continuing to fall. In fact, here in London, we're bucking the national trend with knife crime, gun crime, homicides and teenage homicides all down, unlike across the rest of the country. Not only is this a result of City Hall investment in the police, but it's also been achieved through record investment in providing positive opportunities for our young people, ensuring they don't get caught up in crime and gangs in the first place. But we're not complacent. And I can assure you that we'll continue this approach and this issue with the unfolding focus and resolve it deserves. As Mayor, I also remain passionate about ensuring we continue to deliver for Londoners across a range of other areas, from housing and transport to our environment and the economy. Since 2016, we've taken some huge strides, building record numbers of genuinely affordable homes, including more council homes than at any time since the 1970s, cleaning up London's air, cutting toxic pollution by half in central London, making transport around our city easier, greener and more affordable for millions of commuters, skilling up Londoners with an offer for free training to anyone who's unemployed or in low-paid work, delivering the Elizabeth line, quadrupling funding to address rough sleeping and homelessness, and helping to get London back on its feet after the pandemic by supporting businesses and bringing jobs, tourism and investment back to our city. This is a record of progress and delivery, but there's so much more to do, and I'm just as determined to continue building a better London for everyone, a London that's fairer, safer, greener, more affordable and more prosperous for all of our communities. I look forward to answering your questions tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to set the tone right for this meeting. Heckling or being derogatory in any way will not be allowed. And I will have no hesitation in removing those hecklers out of this room. The Assembly and the Mayor are here to answer your questions, and you should ask those questions respectfully. And if you heckle, I will get you removed. So let's get this absolutely straight. This is an opportunity for you to have a dialogue with the Assembly members and the Mayor, but not to heckle or to shout abuse at anyone. So the first section we can ask questions on is on transport. This topic will be for 18 minutes. I'll take questions in threes. The first two will be from the hall here, and the third from a live chat, which will be fed to me on my iPad. So all those who want to ask a question on transport, please. Okay, panel number 6, the gentleman at the, over there. I think if I can see it, it's grey. Are you wearing grey jacket? Sorry, yeah, number 7. 7, yeah, you're the one, yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for taking my question. I want to ask about the ULEZ, because I want to ask you if you think it's fair and democratic to be pushing a measure through which was not in your manifesto and which clearly, when people were consulted, they said they didn't want. So that's my question to you. Thank you.
Okay. And anyone else? Okay. Can I have this lady with the mask on, with the blue?
Thank you. Mr. Khan, I'd like to say, what are you going to do for people like me who can't afford to buy a ULEZ compliant car and don't fulfil any of the scrappy screen criteria?
Okay. And the question which has come online is, if toxic air concerns the Mayor so much, why is he not addressing the high levels of toxic air on the tube? So, okay. And now we listen to the answers from the Mayor.
Well, thank you for all three questions in relation to the ultra-low emission zone and toxic air. All three questions are clearly linked. So let me be frank and unapologetic in saying that I think it's outrageous that around 4,000 people in our city die every year prematurely because of the toxic air. Now, in the London Borough of Ealing, that figure is almost 200. It is a fact that toxic air is a matter of life and death. Not only are around 4,000 people dying in our city every year, but there are children with stunted lungs forever because of the poison in our air. There are adults with a whole host of health issues, from asthma to cancer, heart disease to dementia. But the good news is we've shown by the ultra-low emission zone in central London and inner London that it is a game changer, because in the centre of our city, it's reduced toxic air by almost a half, and it's in the inner London, it's reduced toxic air by a further 20%. What that means is there are now 1,360 schools in central inner London breathing cleaner air. But in outer London, in outer London is where the largest proportion of people with respiratory issues live. In our great city, there are 500,000 people with asthma or other related illnesses. More than 300,000 live in outer London. The 10 boroughs with the worst premature deaths because of air quality are all in outer London, and they include Ealing. And these policies will lead to the air being cleaner in outer London, so an additional 5 million Londoners can breathe clean air. That means at 1,700 schools, the children there breathe in clean air. But also importantly, there are 282 hospitals and care homes in outer London who are breathing the poison. So what we've done is announce that from August this year, we'll be expanding the ULEZ to cover all of London. But we've also announced a package of £110 million to support those who will have to move from a polluting vehicle to a less polluting vehicle. Not a penny of support given from the government, even though they're giving support to Birmingham, Bristol and other parts of the country. We'll be supporting those who are low income. We'll be supporting sole traders. We'll be supporting small businesses. We'll be supporting charities. We'll be supporting those who are disabled. We'll be supporting those by giving them a grace period as well. And what we've done is make sure that all of London can benefit from clean air. And I'll make this point. There are objections made in the 1950s when we had the Clean Air Act and removed power stations from the centre of our city. There are objections in 2006 when we banned smoking from public places, and there are objections now. What I find unacceptable, though, is some of those who've got legitimate objections joining hands with some of those outside who are part of a far-right group who are... Some of those outside some of those, let's be frank, let's call a spade a spade. Some of those outside are part of the far right, some are COVID deniers, some are vaccine deniers, and some are Tories.
Look, hang on. The mayor has a right to be heard, right? Don't look. This people's question time is an opportunity for you to have an exchange of views, not to hackle or shout, please. Otherwise, we could end this very, very quickly.
Now, to those people who've got legitimate concerns,
excuse me, no heckling. And if you do right, I will get some people removed, please. Okay? Let's hear what the mayor has to say.
now, so for those who've got, and there are people with legitimate concerns, we're seeking to address those, and we'll carry on listening to make sure we make the ULEZ a success.
Mr. Mayor? Have you finished? Yeah, okay. I'm going to bring in Assembly Member Caroline Pigeon, who's from the Liberal Democrat group. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair, and really, really important questions that you have raised this evening. And I think it's really important that we need to clean up the air in London, and we need to make sure this hidden killer that's in our air is tackled. But where I disagree with the Mayor is the speed that he's going at this. We want a longer lead-in time to make it easier for people to move over. But more than that, practically as Liberal Democrats, last week we proposed 2 budget amendments to the Mayor's budget. The first would have doubled the scrappage scheme and made it open to everyone, not just those on benefits, which would address the point we had earlier. And secondly, we would have put £50 million into extra bus services in outer London, because you've got to have a viable alternative. And we were really pleased that the Greens came on board, the Conservatives came on board, but Labour did not. And I'm really sorry. We have tried to make ULEZ work in a better way, but I'm afraid at every turn, Labour blocked it. We also are calling for a scrappage scheme for the South East, which would help those people who live just outside London as well as those in outer London, that the government helps to fund. They have spent £880 million funding scrappage schemes in other cities around this country, but London once again is being left out. So we are trying to do everything we can to make ULEZ work so we can clean up the air, and I just hope at some point the Mayor will listen to us, and we also start then to move on to tackle other areas such as the tube that were mentioned earlier.
Okay, I want to bring in Assembly Member Fortune.
Thank you very much. You heard it, didn't you? If you disagree with the Mayor, he's going to paint you as far right. If you disagree with the Mayor, he's going to say you're a science denier. He's going to say you're a COVID denier. He's going to say you're a flat earther. He's going to say you think there are aliens in Buckingham Palace and Mr. Blobby shot Kennedy. He's going to throw all this crazy stuff at you because he doesn't want to address the fact that you've got legitimate concerns. Now, I used this analogy the other week. The Mayor talks about, he says it's similar to banning smoking in pubs. It isn't. What the Mayor is saying is you can't smoke in pubs unless you pay me £12.50, and then you can smoke in pubs. Also, if you are going to pay £12.50 and smoke in pubs, you need to buy the cigarettes off me, because that's what it's about. It's about finance. At the end of the day, this is about the mismanagement of TfL, and he never talks about the financial impact of people. People come and they make very reasonable concerns about how it's going to impact them visiting family, their small businesses, how it's going to interrupt their daily lives, and he never wants to address that. Because the reality is, he's filling a financial hole in TfL because of his mismanagement. That's why That's why the cameras were ordered before the consultation even started, because the journey here is once he's bled you dry with his ULEZ over the next 2 years, once people have taken out loans, once people have gone out of business, then road user charging is going to come in and there's going to be a whole nother level of charge. This needs to stop, and it needs to stop now.
Any other Assembly members want to come in? Assembly Member Devenish.
Let me just make 2 points. Firstly, when we had a Mayor of London that listened and brought people together, be it Ken Livingstone or Boris Johnson, they listened. They weren't perfect, but they would listen to people. They wouldn't do what Mr. Khan does. And Mr. Khan's own report, his Jacobs report, the TfL report says there is no improvement in outer London in air quality with this scheme. This is a stealth tax by a mayor who never listens to Londoners.
Assembly Member McCartney.
Thank you. Well, I think everyone in this room would probably agree that Boris Johnson is not perfect. Certainly not. But can I say I'm really proud to stand alongside Sadiq, who is a mayor, that rather than taking decisions for his own personal interest, actually takes decisions that, yes, they are bold and yes, they are difficult, but they are the right decisions for the health and well-being of Londoners. And let's be clear, this is about clean air. It's about making sure our children are able to breathe properly. It's about making sure our elder people do not get those respiratory illnesses and die prematurely. It's about making sure that all of us have a better quality of life. And can I just say, the Mayor has announced a 110 million scrappage scheme, and he's right. The government has failed to include London in any national funding scheme. It is funding other cities, but not London. And you ask yourself, why is that if it's not pure politics? And can I say that also, when last week at the Assembly we voted to say that the government should step up and actually include London in its national scrappage scheme, it was the Tories on the Assembly that voted against it. So they're happy to criticise the Mayor, they are not happy to criticise their own government.
The Mayor.
Look, it's really important to understand what's happening here. You're being asked that actually to follow the former mayor who was having parties in Downing Street while the Queen was burying her husband, and not to follow the evidence, which is what the Chief Medical Officer is saying, what Imperial College is saying, what a 200-page report from Jacobs is saying, what clinicians at Imperial College are saying, what clinicians at University College are saying, what Great Ormond Street are saying, what the Ealing and Children's Hospital are saying, which is when you drive a polluting vehicle, you're breathing in poison. You're breathing in particulate matter, you're breathing in nitrogen dioxide, you're breathing in NOx. What this policy is about is cleaning up the air in London. We've seen the difference it's made in central London, a reduction of almost 50% in nitrogen dioxide. Experts around the world have never seen a policy so transformative. If it's good enough for those in central London, why isn't it good enough for those in outer London? They're right. Look, you know, breathing. Unlike Boris Johnson, I don't think it's one rule for one in central London, one rule for another. I think clean air is a human right, not a privilege. And let's be frank, because of my policies now, only 6% of vehicles in central London and in London are not compliant. It used to be a massive 70% because people are cleaning up their cars and that's leading to the air being cleaner. I want the same for outer London as well. As it is, half of London don't even own a car, and those that do, 94% are compliant in inner London, 85% in outer London. And it's a fact, by the way, it is a fact. Some of you have got good reasons to oppose ULEZ, but you're in coalition with COVID deniers. You're in coalition. You may not like it. 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 You're in coalition with the far right, and you're in coalition with vaccine deniers as well.
And I'm now going to ask Assemblymember Berry to come in, please. Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I thought you hadn't seen me. I was still trying to get your attention. I'm Sian. I'm from the Green Party, and I chair the Transport Committee at the moment. And we started this debate with 3 very practical and reasonable questions from the audience. And that is our job in the London Assembly, to listen to those practical questions that come up when there is a policy proposed. And we have listened, and we did, as Assemblymember Pigeon pointed out, come up with some practical solutions to those issues that you face when a policy is put forwards. Now, as a Green, the first question was entirely right. It wasn't in the Mayor of London's original manifesto for this election, but it should have been London-wide from the first place. It should have been London-wide straight away as soon as he came in 2016. Those should have been his plans, alongside helping people in outer London to get around more easily. Now, I'm here to say that you need help. You need better buses. You need cheaper public transport. The zonal system makes you pay more to use the tube. And all of those things should have been being brought in. But it isn't the case that we should be arguing to stop ULEZ now. Clean air is a human right. I hope we all share the goal of making our air clean enough for our children to breathe, and reducing the traffic on our streets so that it's safe enough for our children to play out. We should have a vision for a better London than this. And I think there are different kinds of people who are opposed to this. There are people who are raising practical suggestions, asking the Assembly and the Mayor for help, and who want to get out of their cars but cannot at the moment and need that support to do it. And then there are people, I think, who, whatever we were doing about this problem of too much traffic in London, would be against it. They're not constructive, and I do worry that the Conservatives are teaming up with just about anybody, no matter what their background, who is opposed to the Mayor's proposals now. And some of them are from the far right. So I think the Mayor makes a real, genuine point here that we need. It's true. We need to argue in a way that's reasonable about reasonble policies, which these basically are. Let's not get into a violent fight about all of this, because it's more important than that. Thank you.
We are out of time on this section now. Thank you. We're out of time on transport. If you didn't get your question in, please do visit the People's Question Time Ealing page on London Gov site, which tells you how you can submit one in writing. The next question section is on police and safety. This is our topic for the next 18 minutes, is on policing and safety, which includes any questions about community safety, policing, and the London Fire Brigade. Again, I'll take 3 questions. Please raise your hands if you would like to ask a question. In this section, there are no questions online on policing, so I'll take 3 questions from the audience. Can I have panel number 2 with this lady with the yellow scarf?
Sorry, my question is, now that you have a new commissioner, what action can the BAME communities expect to see to demonstrate the Met is rooting out of racism that still exists within?
Thank you. Number 4, maybe we'll come to this part of the room. Number 4, this gentleman over here. Yes? Yes, I think you.
Hello. I would just like to ask the Mayor, what are we doing to tackle the rise in crime? I mean, we sure have seen a decrease in crime in the wider London region, but we saw, I mean, I used to work in law enforcement, and we've seen 36 cases of sexual and violent offences in January alone. What can we do in Ealing to reduce the level of violent crime and serious organised crime? Thank you very much.
Okay. And that lady, and the number panel 5, the lady next to number panel 5.
No, I'm not actually. No. Hi. So I'd just like to address. I'm very scared about the safety, specifically women's safety. There's a rise in sexual assaults, rape, muggings, and the list goes on. There aren't enough cameras, brighter lighting, and police on our streets in Ealing. What actions are being put in place to protect women and girls, some of who have been attacked and are scared to walk the streets, especially when it's dark?
Thank you for those 3 questions, and we'll get the Mayor to answer them first.
Okay, can I thank all three questioners for their very important questions. So the first question actually is intrinsic when you police by consent, is having trust and confidence in our police service, and it's really important. And the new Commissioner's got a nice phrase. The more trust, the higher standards there are, the less crime there's going to be, because people have confidence to report crime, they'll come forward to be witnesses, and they'll join the police service. But we've got to be honest, there are systemic and cultural problems in our police service which require addressing. I don't think you can solve a problem without recognising there's a problem there. And the good news is both the Commissioner and the Deputy Commissioner understand there are systemic cultural issues, which has been confirmed by not just Dame Louise Case's interim report, but the experiences that many women have had, Black, Asian, multi-ethnic Londoners have had, the LGBTQ plus community after the awful murders from Stephen Port, are illustrations of some of the symptoms you're talking about. So what the Commissioner is seeking to do is to make sure he roots out those cultures and systems in the police service. What we've done is invested from City Hall in more people to support the police when it comes to vetting, to support the police when it comes to a hotline for people to report any issues against the police, but also the Commissioner's agreed to go back 10 years and look at any allegation against a police officer that's relevant in relation to some of the concerns many people in London have. I think we've got to give him time because this thing didn't happen overnight and he deserves time to turn things around. Dame Louise Casey will be providing her final report very shortly, but it's really important to understand that there are thousands of dedicated, decent, brave officers in the police service, and they're as desperate for change as the public is as well. And you know, they see this Commissioner as an ally in transforming the police service. We should see him as an ally in transforming the police service. And the proof will be more people willing to come forward to report crime, more people willing to come forward to be witnesses, and more people willing to come forward and join the police service. And we are recruiting for more police officers and police community support officers as well. So I'd encourage anybody who loves their community to be part of the change we want to see in our police service in London. In relation to the second and third question, which are linked, is the bad news is, I mentioned in my opening, we've managed to buck the national trend in some violent crimes, knife crime, gun crime, homicide, teenage homicides. We haven't when it comes to sexual offences. We haven't when it comes to rape. And it goes to both the questions asked by the last 2 questioners. There's a number of things we're trying to do to address that. It's a nationwide problem we have. Firstly, it takes a long time when somebody reports a rape for that to reach trial. It can take 3 years. So the attrition is a problem. The lack of support for victims and survivors is a problem across the criminal justice service. And so what we need to do is make sure we give people confidence to report crimes and to assist them during that process. We're investing from City Hall £140 million in this area. But actually, it's far better to prevent a crime than to support a victim and survivor afterwards. And you're spot on, by the way, about the importance of the public realm, lighting, CCTV, how we design public spaces. In my view, this is a societal problem. We should start in our primary schools teaching boys how to respect girls. Teaching boys... teaching boys about healthy relationships, We had a campaign last year, Have a Word. It was seen by 15 million men. 85% of men who saw the video realised that sometimes their banter is not received that way by a woman, and often their friends act in a way that's inappropriate. I think misogyny should be a hate crime. I think harassment in the public space should be a criminal offence, and we're going to have a societal approach to these issues. And so we're doing what we can from City Hall. We've written to the government to ask for their support in this area as well, but I think all of us have a role to play, but men in particular have got to provide allyship on this issue.
Mr. Mayor, I've had one question online, okay, which I'll pass over to you before I go to other Assembly members, which is, what can we do to help educate the police about the most optimal way to assist people with mental health conditions?
So when many of us were growing up, the police were often the port of the last call. The last people you'd ring is the police. Now, I'm afraid, because of a variety of issues, I mentioned in my opening, the cuts from the government over 13 years, but the police are often the first port of call. When people have a mental health crisis and issues, the best place for them is with a doctor rather than with a police officer. The police spend a lot of time with people in crisis with mental ill health. We want to free up our police to fight crime, to prevent crime. So what we're doing is we're speaking to the NHS in London to see what they can do to support people with medical ill health. Separately, we're doing lots of work with the community around Thrive London and other people to support young people who have mental health challenges, particularly with the issues with CAMS there are. One of the things that the Commissioner has done and other police forces around the country has done is quantify the cost of mental ill health on policing. It's huge, the amount of hours the police spend on people who aren't criminals but are having a crisis. If we could free up the police to not do that and deal with criminals and bad people, I think it would make our city safer.
Thank you. Assembly Member Umesh Desai.
Thank you, Chair. Although I'm the Assembly Member for City and East London, I'm also the Deputy Chair of the Police Committee, and therefore I'm aware of what goes on around London. The not-so-new Commission now has got lots on its plate, and particularly the very serious issue of violence against women and girls. But also let us acknowledge the solid work that is being done in and around London. I'm aware that the local council, Ealing Council, last summer carried out a major listening exercise called Safer Ealing for Women. Thousands of women informed the action plan. And there is not just rhetoric. Their views has now formed the basis for the council looking at improved lighting, CCTV, a website for information, signposting services, and support and engagement with schools to better inform and educate our young people, which is where it all starts, educating young people. Ealing Council's strategy does build on the foundation of this listening exercise, new housing sustainment, domestic violence support projects. I was also speaking to the Borough Commander earlier this evening, who told me that there was a major local exercise recently tackling county line gangs and helping our young vulnerable people. So there are initiatives out there helping local communities. But let's also look at the use of resources. The mayor, this mayor, Sadiq Khan, in his recent budget, actually has found funding for 500 extra PCSOs, who are desperately needed. It was this mayor, the first London mayor, to use his budgetary powers to recruit and retain 1,300 extra police officers, and contrast that with central government, who over the last decade have slashed the Metropolitan Police's budget by £1 billion, £1 billion. So when the government talks of recruiting 20,000 extra officers nationally, of which London has only got 4,500, they're not talking about new officers, they're talking about replacing officers they'd already got rid of. So it does come down to central government helping local government, helping City Hall in particular. We need these resources desperately. And again, coming back to the issue of violence against women and girls, the mayor has allocated 23.3 million pounds in funding to address this issue. So lots is being done from City Hall, and all I say is we've got to work in partnership, the mayor, the police and local communities, to deal with the very many serious crime issues that our city faces. But let us also acknowledge that work is being done by the mayor and by the police.
Okay. Assembly Member Hall.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to say it's a great shame that clearly lots of you have come here to talk to the Mayor about ULEZ. He gets 3 questions and doesn't answer any of them properly. The trouble is, I don't think he fully understands that it's not the same in outer London as it is in inner London. You can't just pop on a bus, pop on a train, because we don't have that. And I think it's a great shame that when people come here to ask questions...
Assemblymember Hall,
there we are.
You know the rules of the game. This is the transport section. Take the transport. A question on it. Sorry, a police question.
Okay. Do you know, it's amazing. You've allowed the Mayor to speak and then come back. And I am just addressing the issues that the residents that have taken the trouble to come here wanted to talk about. Okay, so now we're in the police section, so I will talk about that. Very sadly, our Metropolitan Police are under special measures under this Mayor, as indeed are our very fine fire brigade under this Mayor. Whenever you hear the Mayor talk, he'll use the statistics that are good, but he will never refer to things that aren't going right. Knife crime in 2022 was up almost 15%. He needs to face the issues. He needs to help the Metropolitan Police as best he can. Let me assure you, there are officers out there who are more horrified by some of the things that have happened than any of us are, truly. They are an incredible force, but they should get far more support from this Mayor. I want to come in on other sections, so I'll stop now, but I do think it is pretty poor that all of you want to get your message across over this wretched ULEZ, and you're not allowed to.
Assemblymember Hall, you know the rules of the engagement. And hang on, I've been in this job for 10 years, and I've sat on Mayor's question times so I think we expect better standards from you, student members.
It's a crime that they're not allowed to ask their questions. There you go.
You should know better. I'm now going to bring in Assemblymember Mohammed, please.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Sem Mohammed, and I am a member of the Labour Group and also a member of the Police and Crime Committee, and I represent Hackney, Islington and Waltham Forest. I really think that it's a crying shame that the current chair of the Police and Crime Committee doesn't want to listen to you talk about policing, because there are really serious issues in the capital right now. But as to the points that this woman here and the woman over there to the left-hand side raised, about, I think, the interplay of misogyny and race when it comes to being a Londoner. There are issues in our capital with trust and confidence in the police from black and minoritised communities. There are issues of trust and confidence in the police from women. I fully understand that perspective, and it is just different. And the thing that I would say is that having sat through the previous commissioner and the previous deputy commissioner coming to the Police and Crime Committee, and the current commissioner and the current deputy commissioner coming to the Police and Crime Committee, the fact is that they do understand and acknowledge that the police does have a problem with race. They do have a problem with trust and confidence with women, and they are willing to accept it. And every single time I'm out in my own constituency, I have 3 borough commands, basic commands, and the officers there, they want to make sure that London is policed well and policed safely, and they have the licence now to go out and root out the bad people in their force that shouldn't be there in the first place, so that the likes of us here in this room can travel around our capital really safely, exactly the same as any other Londoner. So I want you to continue to raise those problems that we have with the police, because if we don't raise the alarm, we won't ever have a police force that's fit to police our capital.
Great. Okay, we are now out of this section on police and now we move on to air quality and the environment. We have 18 minutes for this section. We'll take 2 questions from the audience and 1 from live chat. So this is on air quality and the environment. Panel number 3.
While I understand the need for additional housing, how are you going to ensure that metropolitan open land is not declassified and built on, as this is essential for maintaining open spaces and biodiversity in London?
And over there, panel number 8.
Yep. So I'm from Southall. So, there we are. Why hasn't the mayor still contacted us in Southall regarding the clean air campaign, which has been ongoing for about 4.5 years, and not helping clean up the air in Southall and just pump the air with more vehicles? Then he wants to mention ULEZ. A bit contradiction, I think.
Okay. And one more question. Okay, panel number 2. Who?
Yeah, I went.
Who are you? Which one?
He said panel number 2. Yeah. He said number 2.
I can't see who you are. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Scott Farley. I'm a local councillor in Hillingdon. We are against the ULEZ expansion in Hillingdon as Labour Group. We've made this point clear in our manifesto that we stood on the election in 2022. We all want clean air. We all want that. But the way this is being implemented, we feel the mitigations are not there. It's not good enough for the outer boroughs. In Hillingdon, we have carers, we have our police, we have our nurses using food banks, adding on these extra costs, and they can't afford to change their cars. It's not right. We want to work with the mayor. We want to see clean air, but what we want is better mitigations for those that cannot afford and are not qualifying for scrappage. Thank you.
Okay, and I have one question online, hang on, which is, I'm worried about my children developing asthma. Hang on. What more can be done to reduce toxic air? So I have this question on the line. Over to you, Mr. Mayor.
I didn't hear a question.
Can we please just have silence, please? I'm worried about my children developing asthma. What more can be done to reduce toxic air? And over to you, Mr. Mayor, for the answers to these 4 questions.
Well, can I ask the person who asked the question about metropolitan open land and biodiversity, a really important issue. So look, although we are a global city, we should be incredibly proud that we are quite green. Roughly speaking, 44% of our city is green, but we're going to be careful and never complacent, because obviously there's a temptation to build on that green land, whether it's greenbelt, whether it's metropolitan open land. So we in London, since I became mayor, have satisfied the relevant authorities to become a national park city, because we have policies to keep what we have and to green even more of our city, not just for biodiversity, really.
Hang on, can we let the mayor answer the question, please? Please listen to him.
Not just to keep what we have, but because it leads to better biodiversity, but also better quality of life. And during the pandemic, one of the things that we all appreciated was the importance of, good quality green spaces as well. So from City Hall, what we're doing is supporting communities greening their areas, because it helps also to adapt our city towards the heat waves we had last summer, to help our city when it comes to flash floods as well. So we've got policies in our London plan to support local communities and local councils to make sure we keep what we have and get even more of our city that's green as well. In relation to the second question from the gentleman at the back in Southall, who I think was complaining about the poor quality air in Southall and saying just tackling vehicles isn't enough. I agree. Vehicles is the main source, though, of the poor quality air in our city. Other issues around construction are really important. Other issues in relation to the built environment are really important.
Hang on. The Mayor can't hear you, but your distraction to other people. Listen to the answers from the Mayor. Can we please listen to what the Mayor has to say?
It's not on? Oh, no. Cool. Yeah, it's not about vehicles. It's about the air quality in Southall. The pollution is ridiculous. 5 years ongoing. Clean Air for Southall and Hayes has been ongoing. The gas works has been sold to a private developer for what? For what? Over 88 acres worth of land, which is toxic. Naphthalene, benzene, PM 2.5, PM 10, the chemicals you mentioned earlier are there. What is being done? Absolute jack crap. Nothing. Nothing.
Okay. This is a very specific issue right about Southall, Mr. Mayor, about the Southall Gasworks site. This is what the question is about, okay?
Okay, I'm not aware of the particular case. I'm happy to go and look into it and stuff, but it may be a.
Hang on. Hang on. Look, this is a very specific issue to Southall. The London Assembly doesn't have specific responsibilities on that area, but the Mayor's trying to answer your question best, right? He probably doesn't know all the details of the matter, but I do. But I'm the chair of this meeting, so I can't come in to answer the question.
In relation to Scott's question from, Councillor Scott's questions from Hillingdon, as I said to you, we always keep the scrappage scheme under review. The previous scrappage scheme that was eventually at £61 million began at £25 million, so we increased it, and we've learnt some of the lessons from the previous scrappage scheme to include more people who are now eligible, but also to have a retrofit scheme as well in Hillingdon. The last year for which we have figures, 155 people died prematurely because of air quality. Now, people I can hear people questioning the science, and I can't, all I suggest is they speak to the experts at Imperial College in relation to the work they've done and the peer-reviewed work. The question from the internet, and some people groaned when you read the question, so I couldn't hear. The question was about how do we reduce toxicity, because the person who emailed in has asthma, yes. And quite a few in the room groaned at that. I don't think it's a groaning issue, right? When you speak to the mother of a 9-year-old child who's died because of asthma, it's not a reason to groan. It's a reason to be appalled that in one of the greatest cities in the world, there are around 4,000 people a year dying because of the poor quality air in our city. And you can either put your head in the sands and pretend it's not happening, you can kick the can down the road, or you can take action to clean up the air in the city. And I'm determined to take action to clean up the air in our city.
Okay, thank you. Now look, the more interruptions we have, the less time we have asked questions. We can't have it both ways. So please refrain yourself when you've asked a question and let the Assembly members answer. I want to give the other members a chance too. This is Assembly opportunity for all Assembly members to contribute. So I will now ask Assembly Member Polensky from the Green Group to answer the question.
Thank you very much, Chair. My name is Zach Polensky. I'm from the Green Party and I chair the Environment Committee. Now, as a Green Party Assembly member, whenever I work with the Mayor, I always look to work constructively with him, so applaud him when he gets things right, but also expose gaps where there's things wrong. Now, the Mayor's doing lots of good work around biodiversity and tackling the climate and nature emergency. But right here in Ealing, there's a very relevant site, which is Warren Farm Nature Reserve. Now, of course, we have a Labour council in Ealing, and they need to hear the calls of campaigners very clearly. A third of London's skylarks breeding are on this site. Now, the point about skylarks is not just about those birds. They are what are known as a landmark species. So where there's skylarks, there's lots of other species too that need to be protected. Of course, it's not just about nature, though. This is about our mental health. It's about people's access to green space. Environmental justice links in with social justice too. And it's vital that the Ealing Council change their minds on this and protect that green space.
Okay.
So now, briefly, this all links to a wider issue as well. With the Mayor, I've been campaigning for something called a London Climate Panel. The Mayor often interacts with big climate groups and campaign groups, but sometimes groups like we've heard tonight don't always get a look in because they're not known about. I'd like to see the Mayor set up a panel so the Assembly members don't just amplify your voices, but your voices are heard in City Hall, and it's vital that people are paid for their time and labour, because if you expect people to volunteer their space for free, lots of people will be blocked out of this conversation. And just finally to the Southall community works. I know we've been doing work with the Ealing Greens around this. I'd love to come and visit because the pollution isn't acceptable, and I'd love to have that conversation with you.
Thank you. Assembly Member Bukhari.
Thank you so much. I'm Hina Bukhari, the Liberal Democrat Assembly member. I was standing outside this town hall last week where there were thousands of people from Ealing saying, "Save Warren Farm." It's about time that Ealing Council and the Mayor of London listens to you. People in Ealing want to save Warren Farm for an incredibly important reason. This is a really important open space that has taken 10 years of rewilding, beautiful area that needs to be saved. And the Ealing Liberal Democrats did bring this to the attention of Ealing Council, and they are not listening. So it's about time that you are heard, and you are being heard by us. We will make sure that you are heard on this particular matter. Now, on the other issues as well, on ULEZ, quite frankly, it's not fit for purpose at the moment, which is why the Liberal Democrats made sure that we are moving to ensure that you have got better transport links in outer London. And that's why we wanted to invest more from the Mayor's budget on buses. Now, unfortunately, the Labour group voted against that. And that's simply the case. We have got a plan to make this work, and it's not going to work without the support of Labour here. We also wanted to make sure that scrappage was invested in more, and we need to make sure that this works for you. Again, Labour voted against that. We've all got to be united to make sure that air quality is dealt with, and it can't be a party political approach. Everyone needs to work together. And it's a real shame that Labour didn't support the Liberal Democrats on these two amendments, and I'm really pleased that the others did. And one last final point. It's such a shame that we're not talking about other things that we have to deal with air quality. There was a news broadcast just the other day about wood burning. There are so many things that we should be talking about when it comes to air quality and tackling that, and the Liberal Democrats are listening to you. So I'll make sure that I'll keep on campaigning for you, and let's make sure we do save that beautiful Warren Farm.
And Assembly Member Rogers.
Thank you, Chair. The ultra-low emission zone expansion, let's be abundantly clear. TfL's own data showed that ULEZ expansion will have a negligible effect on air quality. And yet we all know that it will have a devastating impact on outer London. Businesses, charities and residents, they will all be unfairly penalised for going about their daily business. The Mayor earlier spoke about extreme financial pressures. Well, he is the one who will be putting extreme financial pressures on thousands and thousands of Londoners. Financial pressures on Londoners who have said that they do not want this policy. They told the Mayor loud and clear in the public consultation, and he ignored them. Just as he has ignored He's ignored the public backlash that has happened since he announced his decision. Now, ULEZ expansion is about making money. We know that. And Labour showed their true colours recently by voting against a Conservative proposal that would have invested £550 million in zero-emission buses and tackling local pollution hotspots. They voted against measures that would have actually cleaned up the air to protect their damaging ULEZ expansion.
Okay. Assemblyman Rogers?
Labour, well, effectively, the Mayor needs to cancel ULEZ expansion and invest in policies that will actually clean up London's air. Thank you.
Okay, we are out of time on this section too. We now go on to housing. We now move on to housing in minutes. I'll take 2 questions from the audience and 1 from online. And hang on. I make the decision who I call. Okay? And because you've done that, you may prejudice someone. Hang on. Look, can I have this panel number 4? Panel number 4, the gentleman with the white, is a white piece of paper?
That was my boyfriend waving for me. Is everyone ready? I'm just waiting for people. You say a lot about helping people insulate their homes, which is great. But in London in particular, especially with new housing that will come in, is likely to be flats. Why is there no support to help people protect their properties from overheating? Because it feels very much that with the climate change, we are just like frogs boiling in the pan where it slowly gets hotter and we can't escape.
Okay. Okay, number 7, the lady with the yellow.
Hi. Thank you. Sorry. It's great that you are building what you call homes and houses, but they're not. They're not the everyday homes and houses that everybody should have with a little bit of garden, a little bit of space. There are all these huge flats, 14 stories, 20 stories, 26 stories, which you want to build here, in places that don't need those flats. We need homes, we need houses. We need to be able to meld the area to be the same and not odd flat here and there, like you're planning in Greenford that's going on at the moment. 4 stories.
Okay, we got the question. I have one online. What comments do you have in regards to the government removing/lowering housing targets, considering we have many thousands of awaiting social and affordable housing? So those 3 questions. Look, can I ask the Mayor and Assembly members to be very succinct in your reply, because the more quickly we can get through answers, the more we can get from. So over to the Mayor first, please.
Yeah, I'll try and be quick to get more questions in. So the question at the back is a very important question, which is how do we adapt our homes, bearing in mind the heat waves we had last year, which are going to become more regular. And it's really important we invest in the phrase, the jargon is retrofit, but it's adapting our homes to make sure they can deal with the extreme weathers we have, cold in winter sometimes, very hot in summer. So what we're doing is we're investing with government support in relation to retrofitting homes and public buildings. Not enough, but we need to do far more. Actually, the advantage of addressing this issue is it reduces bills as well. It reduces your bills in summer because you need to less put fans on, have air conditioning, but also it reduces your bill in winter because you need heating less as well because it's better insulation. So the same solution often helps with cooling your homes in the summer and keeping it warm in the winter. So we are giving support. I announced in my opening speech the Warmer Homes grant, £80 million. We need more support, though, to make sure more homes are retrofitted and adapted going forward. And the really good thing about that is it creates good jobs. So it's a good way of making jobs for those who retrofit our homes, and it supports families like yours as well. The second question in relation to the importance of gardens and amenity spaces is really important. So we now have as a requirement in relation to the London plan that when it comes to homes being built, they need to build in amenity space. We also require councils to carry out an assessment of the amount of family homes that are needed. That's not just the 1 bedroom and the 2 bedroom, which you often see in the big flats, but also 3 bedroom and 4 bedrooms as well. It's really important because obviously some families in overcrowded housing in particular need the bigger homes. We know, as Zach mentioned, during the pandemic, the green space to mental health. And so we are supporting those developers to build those homes. One of the problems is the way the grant system works from the government in affordable housing. There's not an incentive for developers to build those homes. There is an incentive to build flats, and that's why we need to work on the government to make sure the grant system works better. The good news is we are building record numbers of all size homes, 1, 2, 3 and 4 bedroom in our city. In relation to housing targets, the supply of new homes is not meeting the demand. And for the foreseeable future, the supply of new homes is not going to meet the demand, which is why you've got a situation where most people in search of housing are living in the private rental sector, and the rents in the private rental sector are very expensive. The quality of standard is very poor, and there's no security of tenure. So we need to build more homes, family homes, build more homes for smaller families, but also in the meantime, fix the private rental sector. Freeze rents now, give us the powers to have rent controls, get rid of the no-fault evictions, and make sure there's better quality housing for everyone.
Hang on. You didn't. That question doesn't need to be answered. You didn't ask it properly. Okay. Next is Assembly Member Devenish. No. You. Hang on. Listen to me. If you don't stop, I'll ask you to be removed. Okay, security, can we please remove this gentleman if he doesn't stop? Okay. Okay, over to Assembly Member Devenish, please.
In 2016, Mr. Khan and I and many people here were elected for the first time. And one of the big issues was the housing crisis. There was cross-party consensus we needed to do more in London for housing. So what's Mr. Khan done in 7 years? Not a lot is the answer. He's not even spent the billions of pounds the government have given him to build homes. But at the start of tonight, he said something which I have to pick up. It's one of the most irresponsible things he's ever said, and he said it before. He talks about rent controls. Rent controls would destroy the housing market in London. It would increase rent level. People wouldn't rent their homes. And as Scotland has found, and Berlin and Ireland, it is an irresponsible policy. Mr. Mayor, do something on housing. It's a huge issue. We agreed in 2016, and you've done absolutely zilch.
Assembly Member Sheikh.
Good evening, everyone. It's lovely to be here. My name is Sakina Sheikh. I chair City Hall's Planning and Regeneration Committee. And just to push back a little bit on what are the contributions we just heard in terms of what is the Mayor doing on housing, I think this is an area where the stats and the evidence is so clear in terms of Sadiq's record in terms of building social housing, but also affordable housing, right? The gentleman who was removed, and I think although that was unfortunate, his point was valid. Let's talk about homelessness, because that is actually at the core all of the housing crisis, and all of what Sadiq is calling for, rent freezes, a ban on Section 21 no-fault evictions, would stop homelessness. You want to stop homelessness, Stop developers, stop landlords kicking people out onto the streets because they can't afford their rent. That's why we need rent freezes. That's why it's incredibly dangerous when the Tories stand up and spew misinformation about rent freezes crumbling our housing crisis, when actually it's a Tory government that has created the housing crisis. The housing crisis has not come about in a bubble. It's come about because we have no controls on our rent. It's come about because the housing cost, it's unaffordable to save for a deposit. Many of my friends can't afford a deposit. You get trapped in a rental cycle with deteriorating housing conditions. And actually that is why we are so lucky to have a Labour mayor in City Hall calling for rent freezes, calling for a ban on Section 21, pushing back on no recourses to public funds, which discriminates against asylum seekers and refugees and criminalises their status. And also to speak on the London plan, which is the spatial planning document Sadiq has referred to. London is leading when it comes to housing design. We are setting precedents. We are setting precedents that we are asking the government to catch up with, whether that's how big our bedrooms are, how big our living rooms are, our access to sunlight, our access to green spaces. Actually, in the pandemic, we realised that the way our cities are designed has a huge impact on our mental health. So I deplore any of you, come to City Hall, watch the Planning and Regeneration Committee, look at the London plan, and you will see that that guidance shows the government exactly what they need to do in order to set actual standards that meets the housing needs of Londoners, like Sadiq is doing. Thank you.
And Assemblymember Boff.
You know, it's funny, if you disagree with the mayor on homelessness, you get thrown out. If you disagree with him on the ULEZ, you get called a Nazi. The mayor's record on housing is uniquely poor. And he's been given a record amount of money to spend on housing in London. The government's been enormously generous, over 9 billion quid, in order to get that affordable housing done. And he still has 18,000 homes to build by the end of to start by the end of this month. The fact is that the reason the lady was mentioning earlier, she was mentioning about the lack of about these tower blocks, is that his administration is now so panic-stricken, they're trying to chuck up any old crap in order to get the numbers going. So we've got tower blocks being built where people don't want them. And the very kind of home that Londoners need, family-sized homes with a door at the front and a small garden at the back, that's exactly what he's not building. And I know that doesn't I know these facts don't appeal to the Labour Party, and yet the Labour Party supported the Labour Party on the Assembly, along with the rest of us, said as a committee, united, that tower blocks are not the solution to London's housing problems. But what's curious is when the mayor's around, they change their opinion and they join the people, you know, the paid clappers in the front row here. I mean, you know, to get the real feeling in the meeting, you've got to go about 3 rows back, you know? And I know it makes them feel uncomfortable. And to go back to the Labour councillor's question earlier on another subject, look, on very few occasions does the London Assembly have power, but we do at budget time. And at budget time, all the parties except Labour supported increased scrappage scheme. They supported more buses for outer London, and they supported more disabled toilets on the TfL system. And do you know who the only the only politicians that voted against were Labour ones? So, sir, I absolutely agree with you, and I admire your courage for breaking your party line. But the guy you've got to have a chat to is your Assembly member, Onkar Sahota, because he voted against those too. Thank you.
Andrew Boff.
Andrew Boff. Onkar, can I respond?
You're a wonderful vice chair of the Assembly, and you know the rules very well. I'm delighted about that. But I'm going to give an opportunity for the Assembly, for the Mayor to answer the question, because he deserves the opportunity to answer.
Let's be clear. At the budget meeting, the Conservatives voted against universal free school meals.
That's a complete fiction. A complete fiction. And you know it. And you're quite happy to sit there and say a fiction to the public.
The Mayor has a right to answer questions.
Let's be clear. And let's be clear. And let's be clear. The government responsible for the deregulation, the party responsible for running the council that led to the Grenfell Tower tragedy are in no fit state to lecture me about the quality of housing and the concerns around tall buildings. But let's look at their record. In Boris Johnson's last year as mayor, 3 social rent homes begun in London. Last year, 9,698. That's the difference between a Tory and a Labour. Last year, we began building more council homes than any year since the 1970s. That's the difference between the Tories and Labour. And by the way, last year we completed more homes in London than any time since the 1930s. That's the difference between the Tories and Labour. They don't like it, but those are the facts.
If you believe that, I've got a bridge to sell you.
Okay. We now go on to the next section, London's economic recovery. We have 80 minutes on this topic. Look, we do have rules for this whole game. It's about that we stick to the topics. I know Assembly members sometimes forget this, and I need to remind them. They think this is City Hall, because I need to remind them the same way I need to remind them over there. But can we just stick to the questions, right, to the section which is London's economic recovery? So I'll take 2 questions from the audience and 1 from online. Okay. Number 3, this gentleman holding a piece of paper up. Yeah, you? Yeah, yes, you.
Thank you very much. We're talking about London's economic recovery. London is not affordable for a young person like me. And we all received your pamphlet on the chairs about the ULEZ. It contained no facts or figures about the impact assessment that this is actually going to make any difference, because it's not. So when we talk about London's economic recovery, your ULEZ is going to put young people like me further away from London. So how's that going to help businesses? How's that going to help charities and shops and local high streets? Because it's going to push them under, especially after COVID. You said yourself that we're recovering after COVID. But your ULEZ is going to push businesses, charities and residents under during a cost of living. So I'm sorry, but follow the facts, because you probably cut down forests to print this out and it's got no facts in it. You're our mayor. This is people's question time. Follow and listen to the people.
Okay. This lady here.
So I'm super proud to have a Labour mayor who's really radical, and thank you for everything you do, Sadiq. I think you're great. In terms of our... oh dear. Could you tell me about what opportunities we've got for young people in London, and how you are working post-Brexit to continue to ensure that we are the strongest and the best city for people in Europe to come and work in, and for all of our children to live in and work in? Thank you.
And I have a question online. which says, thank you for making free school meals universal. For a year, when so many families in Ealing are struggling with the cost of living and children are getting hungry, how can we get the government to make university free meals a permanent policy in the rest of the country? Thank you.
Well, look, let me clear to the person who asked the question. Let me ask the question back to you. What is the cost of a life lost because of air quality? What is the cost? What is the cost of a mother having to do CPR and a child to bring her back to life? What is the cost to the NHS in treating people who suffer an illness because of poor health? I can tell you the cost to the NHS is £10 billion. The cost to businesses by the time taken off because of illness is £1.5 billion. And the benefits...
Can we listen to the answer, please?
And although it might be convenient for your narrative to blame me for inflation being at record highs, it's a direct consequence of this government's policies. There are consequences to government austerity. We've got inflation and interest rates at a 40-year high, and you can't blame the Labour mayor for that. What we're trying to do is to improve the quality of air in London, and without a penny of support from the government, we have a £110 million scrappage scheme to support the £64 million scrappage scheme in the central and inner London, at the same time as improving public transport. And that's the difference we are making in relation to addressing the cost of living crisis. Now, that's not the case. That is not the case. It is not the case. 4,000 premature deaths because of public transport. It is not the case. That might be convenient to the misinformation you're posing, but it's not the case. In relation to the second, and by the way, this is a good example of the vocal minority drowning out silent majority. And so, I'm not going to apologise in investing in young people by reopening the youth clubs Boris Johnson closed down. Right. I'm not going to apologise for employing youth workers that lost their jobs because of the former mayor, Boris Johnson. They may not like it, but this extreme hard Brexit they campaigned for is leading to some of the challenges we have in our city and our country now. If we had an oven-ready deal from Boris Johnson, why has Sunak spent the last 6 months trying to get a new deal in relation to Northern Ireland? That shows the charlatan he was, and we're living with the consequences of those policies. And in relation to the Tories on the platform with their mock horror, when I outed them for its universal school meals, what did the former mayor do when he was Prime Minister? What did the former mayor was mayor for 8 years? Nothing to help those children. The Labour group, with the support of the Labour mayor, the Greens and the Lib Dems, have voted for universal free school meals. The Tories voted against that. And the short answer to the last question is, if London can do it, why can't the rest of the country? The answer is very simple. We've got a Tory government and a Labour mayor.
Okay. Assembly Member Plensky.
Thank you very much, Chair. These are serious issues. A report out last week showed that 90% of low-income households can't even afford basics who are on universal credit. So it's really clear what the effect of 13 years of austerity under this Tory government have done to London and to the rest of the country. Now, there's no point in me repeating history here, so this isn't even an attack on the government. We've got to look for new solutions. And one of these solutions is a universal basic income. Now, to be fair to the Mayor, he has co-signed a letter calling for a basic income nationally, but this is one area where the Mayor should be showing leadership. I've launched a report today that demonstrates how the Mayor could talk to Londoners and involve Londoners in a process to design a basic income in London so we can show the rest of the country how it's done.
Great. Assembly Member Fortune.
Thank you very much. Let me just put some context around the Mayor's budget. The Mayor's budget is over £20 billion. He's currently carrying 2.1 billion in reserve. And with that, you have to ask yourself, why then is there an 8.8% increase in your council tax this year from this Mayor? You have to ask yourself why, over this Mayor's term, he's increased his section of the council tax by 57%. Now, that's the bill he's given you as Londoners for his role as Mayor. Anyone here who's working, you go for your one-to-ones and you think about your job description. Let's think about the Mayor's job description. He's for the police. The police is in special measures. Responsible for fire. It's in special measures. Housing hasn't met its targets. In fact, he may have to return some money because he hasn't built enough houses. TfL, as we know, broke, and he's topping up that gap by taking money off of you through ULEZ. By the way, telling you that £2,000 is going to buy you a new car, that goes to show somebody who's far removed from reality, right? So what you have to ask yourself is, when he's not accusing you of being far right, when he's not saying you're denying science, when he's not completely obsessed about Boris Johnson. Now look, there is somebody living rent-free in London right in the middle of Sadiq Khan's head. What he's doing is he's blaming government. And he's always talking about what government should do, because he never wants to talk about what he hasn't done.
Assembly Member Ahmed.
My name is Marina Ahmed. I'm the Labour Assembly Member for Lambeth and Southwark. The Free School Meal Initiative by the Mayor is an emergency measure to support families in the cost of living crisis, to step up where government inaction has taken. In November, we had a missed opportunity by Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, and families, when he left the threshold at £7,400, and it means that, and what that means is that denied meals and nutritious food to children, hundreds and thousands of children across the country. The Conservatives are not going to help you. Since September at the Assembly, we have had 3 motions about the cost of living crisis, and they have either voted against or they have abstained on those. In this city, there are 210,000 children who are missing out on free school meals. 10,144 of those are in Ealing, and those children, over 10,000 children in this borough will go to bed hungry tonight. The Mayor and a number of Labour councils across London have shown leadership on this issue. We have the budget coming up, and it's time for the government to step up and follow that leadership. We live in the 6th richest country in the world. It is unacceptable in 2023 for children in the capital city of the 6th richest country in the world to be hungry.
Assembly Member Leonie Cooper.
Thanks very much, Onkar. My name is Leonie Cooper, and I'm the Assembly Member for Merton and Wandsworth, and I'm the Deputy Chair of the Environment Committee. I think it's a shame, actually, that we've been a bit rowdy this evening. It's been fun, but it has meant that we've heard less questions from you, so I'm going to try and keep my remarks brief. I do think when we make points about the things that the Mayor has done, I think we have got quite a long list now since 2016. The launch of the night tube has made a huge difference, including for people. Introducing the hopper fare has actually made use of buses a lot cheaper. Issues relating to the culture in the police force, which I think my colleague Semmo Emma was particularly eloquent about, but also the fire brigade. I sit on the fire committee. I find it quite actually that it's suggested that this has happened on the Mayor's watch. We know that this reflects, hang on a second, this reflects society. Is the Mayor responsible for what's going on in the fire services around the rest of the country or other police services out? No, he's not. He's got a big budget running London, but he is only running London. He's not running the other fire services where there has also been found to be racism and sexism and going on. He doesn't run the other police services. He doesn't run Yorkshire Cricket Club, where appalling racism was found. The fact that we have people sitting up here on this platform who are diverse and who represent London is a big step forward, but it doesn't mean to say that society has actually caught up with the fact that these are still things that are there out there in society, and therefore, you know, the Mayor took a lot of flack over what happened with the parting company with the last police commissioner, and it's good to hear from the new police commissioner how much he is going to start to root out all the problem areas. You know, there is a lot that has been done. Nobody sitting on this platform is saying that there's still not much to do, but we have confidence that the Mayor is taking these things forward with a new Met Police and a fire commissioner who commissioned his own report into the culture and the fire brigade and is working closely with the Mayor to move the fire brigade forward. These things are not finished, but they are underway. Thank you.
Assembly Member Hall.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you know, I thought you weren't going to ask me then. Thank you so well done, audience. You've certainly got Sadiq Khan rattled, because whenever he's rattled, he sits there and says, I'm going to apologise for this. I'm not going to apologise for that. And of course, yes, you do. I'll remind you every time you do it. And then, of course, he goes on about Boris. So anyway, this section is about London's recovery. I do not know what the Mayor thinks small businesses on the outskirts are going to do when their customers don't come over the border because it will cost them £12.50 going to the local shop for a loaf of bread or whatever. They're just not going to do it. I walked up and down this high street I live, Hatch End High Street, with the Telegraph the other day. We went in most of the shops and not one of them thought the ULEZ was a good idea. Not one of them. I hope you're listening, Sadiq. People are very upset about the ULEZ. If you ask people here today their main concern, it's clear it's ULEZ, and yet we've been rushed on to other subjects. You haven't answered their questions. It wasn't in your manifesto. It wasn't in your manifesto. You are not giving people enough time to sort this out. Gradually, people's cars will go anyway. In our amendment to your budget, we looked at replacing buses. Buses are on the road the whole time, spewing out fumes. If we electrified the bus fleet, then the air quality would improve, because every one of us wants improvement. But to shove a £12.50 fine on the poorest in society, well, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is your Mayor. He doesn't listen to a word any of us say, unless, of course, you're Labour.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, do you want to come back? Okay. Okay, we go on to the next section then. This is a section where we have 50 minutes to take your questions on topics that haven't been covered so far. I'll be taking no more questions on things which have already been covered. So this could cover culture, health, or education, for example. And I'll take 2 questions from the audience and 1 from the chat. So I'll have this number 3, panel number 3, this lady with the yellow.
Default to my colleagues, a natural young person.
Pardon?
Yes, real one.
Okay.
As a young person in Ealing, there are only 3 statutory youth clubs, one of which was set for closure until us young people lobbied for it to be saved. What are you doing to ensure that young people across London have access to opportunities and trusted adults in safe places?
Okay, thank you. That gentleman with pedal number 1.
Thank you. Thank you. First, you can apologise to me, Mr. Mayor, because I'm not right-wing. I'm a left-wing. I voted Labour all my life. All right. Secondly, Ealing Council don't care about air quality, as said by Julian Bell, who said, the need for houses far outweighs the need of people's health. That's his words, not my words. I've got it in an email. I've kept it for about 7 years. This is about health. My wife has had cancer 3 times. She's had hysterectomy, breast cancer twice. She died on the operating table once. Her heart stopped, and she was in intensive care for about 5-6 days. She's had septicemia about 7 times and had to be rushed into hospital. And at one point, she was about 30 minutes away from dying. 2 years ago, she was in hospital because kidney stones burst inside her. And she was in a coma days, and miraculously she's still alive. My question to you, do I turn the heating on house to keep her warm and keep her alive, or do I take out a loan to buy a new car because you're expanding ULEZ? I only bought my car a few years ago before you announced this new urgent. I bought the car because I knew where the North Circular and South Circular were. I bought the car because it suited my wife's needs. You are putting me into poverty. I earn a good wage. You're putting me into poverty.
I think you've asked the question now.
I've saved all my life to have I'm 60 years old. I've just turned 60. I've saved life to have the next 5-10 years with my wife to have an enjoyable time. Carry on with you. Have to make a choice for me. Do I turn the heating off? You decide.
Okay. And panel, hang on. Number 6, the gentleman over there. Panel number 6, yeah. Panel number 6, yeah? Okay, that's great.
Oh.
No, I'm sorry, but I couldn't see very clearly from you.
Hi. I just wanted to raise a question which I think underlies many of the issues being asked about today, and that is the question of local democracy. Because I've been in Ealing now for about 18 years, and I've seen a marked deterioration in the whole system, I have to say. I'll just give you an example. In the last local elections, I know personally in West London, very eminently qualified and made record councillors, Labour councillors. As soon as they announced that they were going to stand, they got almost identical emails telling them they'd been suspended or expelled. And you can object to this and you can appeal, but that takes months, possibly years. Saying, I'm appealing really to the Labour group here to try and fight this ongoing purge. It's not just London, obviously, it's nationwide. To fight this purge and try and bring back democracy locally and nationally. Thank you.
And I have one question online, which is, how are you helping adults to gain new skills and jobs? To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you for the 4 questions. Firstly, congratulations on keeping the youth club open. It's just a great piece of campaigning, which is really important. So the Labour side, the Greens and the Lib Dems, think it's really important to invest in young people. And so over the last 13 years, many youth clubs have closed down the city. Sian Berry, who's behind me, about 3-4 years ago, and she's updated it since. I know, I'm coming to that, Sian. And so what Sian does is every updates, and the good news is, it's really important that I give public credit. In 2016, when I first became mayor, Sian lobbied me in relation to and support young people because we could see the consequences of youth clubs closing down. Don't be surprised if and join a criminal gang, or have idle hands lead to the devil's work and so forth. So we have invested in young people. So there's something called the Young Londoners Fund, which supported Londoners, 130,000 young Londoners, funded more than 300 projects, many youth clubs reopening. Separately, we set up what's called the Violence Reduction Unit, and we've got a plan to have 100,000 young people to have mentors. Often a youth worker is a mentor. He or she can be like, a proxy mum, dad, big brother, big sister, and big support. And so we're doing lots of work to support young people, particularly small youth clubs. So afterwards, speak to Onkar or one of my deputy mayors, and we'll see what we can do to support your particular youth club. It's really important. Listen, we know the sad news is most crimes are committed between 4 p.m. and 10 p.m., and most victims of crime are young people. So keeping young people busy, constructive and active means they fulfil their potential, they flourish and thrive rather than the alternative. So we're doing lots of work in that area, and I'm really keen to work with you in relation to that. In relation to mental health, and I'm glad to see you're doing better. By the way, all right, they were outside, and let's, if you should be careful campaign with, and so in relation to your particular circumstance, it is worth you looking into whether you're eligible, because your wife may qualify as somebody who's disabled or some health conditions. We do know that as a consequence of listening to people like you, we've extended our grace periods in relation to people who are unwell, and also the exemptions as well in relation to this. But I make this point. If you are inside a vehicle that is polluting, you are breathing in the particulate matter, you are breathing in the nitrogen dioxide. Somebody who's got health issues, the last place they want to be is in a polluting vehicle. And so that's why I say to people who drive in a vehicle that's not ULEZ compliant, you are breathing in this poison. It's probably leading to some of the health issues that we've talked about, from asthma to cancer, from dementia to cancer as well. And there's research there to suggest that. So you may want to speak to your clinicians about how some of your wife's conditions may be exacerbated by air quality. In relation to the question at the back, in relation to local democracy, it is important for local people to get involved in democracy. We've heard how young people, not party political, have got involved in campaigning locally to keep their youth club open. I'd encourage anybody interested in party and then stand. It could be for a governor, it could be in the trust of your hospital, it could be designed to be aware of the particular circumstances around the 3 or 4 people you mentioned. But all political parties, including the Labour Party, have got appeal rights, and so it's worth asking them to look into appealing, particularly in advance of the next council election rather than 6. In relation to the question that was emailed in about new skills, one of the things that we are responsible for in City Hall is the budget for training those above the age of 19. And since it was devolved to me, the Mayor, we've made sure there's now free training available to who is unemployed, who is on a minimum wage job, who is low skilled, or somebody who's been out of the person that's emailed in, Onkar, to go to the City Hall website and see what courses they may be eligible for, which are free and which will hopefully skill them up to get a better paid job, or if they're out of work, to get a job full stop. It's really important that we carry on providing that helping hand.
Thank you. Assembly Member Umesh Desai.
Thank you, Chair. Toughen causes of crime is not just a cliche, it's more than that. Yes, you've got to be tough on crime enforcement. There's also investing in our young people, and so the sort of work that goes on behind the scenes that often doesn't get in the press. The Mayor's £70 million Young Learners Fund is a good example of how young being helped. In Tower Hamlets, which I represent, the Violence Reduction Unit funds a number of local projects who, through youth work, football tournaments, bring young people together, offering them a diversion and putting them on the right path. It's those sort of opportunities for our young people that are so, so important. And that is why it's important to invest in them, in youth services, which the Mayor is doing through his Young Londoners Fund. That is an important part in the fight against crime. Thank you.
Assembly Member Devenish.
You know, I can agree with Mr. Khan on one thing. Mayor of London, and next May, you'll get the chance to vote for who you want to be the next Mayor of London. And as we've seen, in the last 7 years, Mr. Khan has spent 25% of his time talking about Boris, 50% of his time blaming the government, and about the rest of his time putting up self-taxes. So all I'll say is, please think who you vote for next time, because we can't have another 4 years of this man.
Assembly Member Berry.
Thank you very much, Chair. And thank you, Mayor, for drawing attention that helped convince you to invest back in youth centres. And I think the first time I brought it up, we said London's job and local councils should do it. But the fact is, councils all across London work on this because, as my colleague Zach said earlier on, because of austerity, because the government was squeezing their funding streams almost to death. And the Mayor originally didn't want to chip in, but he did in the end. Now, I've been doing, I hope you like the last one I sent him, which was about the dead spaces in our communities of all kinds, because it isn't just having closing down. It's community centres, it's libraries, it's depots, it's shops was run. I did a report, I looked at them across London, I found over 400 what we call community councils. And going to the point about local democracy, I think one of the main solutions to this is not just a reversal of austerity and the ability for councils to provide public services, but for local communities to take them over. I know there are youth centres across London which people have reopened up. They've taken them over again and managed to do that as a local community. And I think that is what is to us as stopping the cuts to the funding. So I hope the Mayor will listen and do some more to help with our spaces across London as well as our youth centres.
That's all we've had time for this evening. Thank you for participating. Don't forget to keep an eye on our website for details of next people's questions. If your question wasn't answered, you can contact the Mayor on the London Gov site. You should receive a 20 days. Remember to complete the online feedback form via the link displayed on the screen. The key is available on posters around the room. Good night and have a safe journey home. Thank you very much.